Good evening, everybody. I am so excited you have arrived with us today to TBD Storytellers. It's already a great Tuesday just because you showed up. And I am Sheila Arnold. I live on Hampton, Virginia, over on the East Coast, and I'm glad to be here. And I do want to let you know that we appreciate you coming. And if you would like to donate to TBD Storytellers, you can do so through PayPal at TBD, that's a B as in bear, tbdstorytellers@gmail.com, or you can email us at tbdstorytellers at tbdstorytellers@gmail.com, and we will give you other options and such. Before we get started, we're going to begin with, I know you've asked this question, why are we called TBD? Well, I'm going to see if you can guess. So in your chat, write what you think TBD means. No bad cursing allowed. I don't really know what that means. Yeah, so just, TBD means to be determined. Mary, obviously we're here, so it's not to be determined. It's always meant to be determined, of course, but we're here, so what does it mean for us? To be done. Oh, that's, yeah. To be done.
Is that a wish?
Yeah. I think they're telling me to shut up is what they're telling me. Your name needs to be determined. Yeah, teller's big deal. That is true. We are a big deal as far as tellers are concerned. I agree. To be dynamite. Pow! You got it right. Okay, this is good. I like these. Keep these coming. At trial by delinquents. Who put that down there?
That's good.
Are you trying to say something about us?
The big dogs.
I like that.
I like that one. So who let the dogs out? Who. Diverting, almost football season and such. Oh, to be delightful. Oh, Valerie, you're so. Tellers being demented.
Yeah, that too.
So true.
There it is. Truth be damned. And that's exactly why we're here today. Today is our first show for Pants on Fire Leg 1. There'll be Leg 2 in September, and I'll give you more details about that. But why don't we get started? The first half of our show is going to be aquatic tales, tales of bodies of water, and that what you might see in bodies of water. And I don't want to hold you up a moment because Antonio is going to get us started on a river. And so, Antonio, why don't you tell us a story or a lie? Just a reminder, just a note, everybody, Antonio wants you to hear his story and figure out which part of it is actually a lie.
Okay, all right. Good evening, everybody. How are you? Thank you for coming and making this possible. I'm gonna get rid of the hat and hang it right here so it's out of the way. And I have Pinocchio with me just to make sure I really tell a lie. Okay. All right. So that's my lying buddy there. Now, this story is one of those fishing stories. Yes. Now, the whole story has a lie in it. It doesn't mean that the whole story is a lie, right? So the whole story has a lie in it. So you need to keep your ears open and your eyes on my eyes because you need to figure out what is the lie in the story, okay? Well, when I was 12 years old, our family gained a new member. Yes, I was 12 when one of my four older sisters, no brothers, no younger siblings, just me as the youngest, had four older sisters. I still have them, yeah. One is 7 years older than I am. The other one is 12 years older than I am. The other one is 18 years older than I am. The other one is 24 years older than I am. Well, the one that's 12 years older than I am, fell in love with somebody and he became our new member of the family. His name is Eder. Eder spells H-E-D E-R. In Portuguese, H's are the best listening letters for storytelling. Did you know that? Do you know why H's are the best listening letters for storytelling? Because they are silent. Yeah, that's why. So, H's are silent. So, H-E-D-E-R, you hear Edith. And Edith came to the family, and right away, he became known as the one who knew how to fish. I mean, this man is crazy about fishing. He would rent a summer house and would go in, the whole family would go to the summer house, and he would be there on a rock crop facing the South Atlantic trying to fish. I have vivid memories. There was one time we're on this beach, and I was in the house. I had gone to the beach already. It was late afternoon, and he was there with my sister fishing. When all of a sudden, my sister burst into the house and said, I need the camera. They were fishing without a camera, so she was looking for a camera. He's got something big. We don't know what it is. He's got something big. And we go over to see what is it that he's got. And sure enough, he's been there for 20 minutes trying to figure out to get this big fish out of the water. The fish would pull the line, you could hear the thing going, and then the fish would stop, and there was no way to pull this thing towards it. It was just like a rock all of a sudden. And then you'd take off again, and you'd try to get the fish back a little bit, but it was very hard, and then the fish would just stop. And then he started to think that it might be a stingray, because stingrays go to the bottom of the water, and they sit on the sand, and it's really hard to move them once they get sucked to the sand. And sure enough, 20 minutes later, he pulls out a stingray. The thing was this big. Yes. How big it was? It was this big. My sister sliced the wings off the stingray and made a delicious soup. And I was just a teenager, and I loved that soup, and I still remember it, that stingray soup. Another time, they took me camping. It was just the three of us. We're camping in a faraway beach away from Rio, and he's there on a rock crop, just like fishing deep sea. He's there fishing from the rock, when all of a sudden, zzz, the line is going left and right, right and left, and all of a sudden, some 20 minutes later, again, he pulls out a fish that was the size of a spread open newspaper. Yeah, just like it was huge, the fish. And how do I remember it was the size of a spread open newspaper? Because that's what my sister used to put the fish on top and clean it in order to grill it right there camping on the beach. And that's when I discovered something. And if he had said it before, he had never really registered. But here's this delicious looking fish, grilled right there on this tropical beach. And he said that he wanted the well done part. And my sister was cooking it just right, because you don't overcook fish. And he wanted the really crispy end. I'm like, why do you want the crispy end? There's this delicious steak here. It's just amazing. It's like, well, I don't like, as you know, you heard that I don't like a fish when it smells fishy. And I'm like, why don't you like the fish when it smells fishy? It's like, the fish is supposed to smell fishy. That's what a fish does. It's like, no, I don't like it. I'm very particular because of something that happened to me when I was 14. Oh, and the story he tells me as a teenager listening to this, the story goes, so here's my brother-in-law. He's 24 years older than I am. And he's telling this teenager self the story of when he was a teenager and he'd gone fishing with his uncle and some of his friends. Now, this was kind of adventure fishing. He lived in the countryside in Brazil, way down south, about 2 hours by plane away from Rio. And in the countryside, way out in the interior of Brazil. Very hot, away from the ocean, and lots of rivers, lots of wild animals in the countryside. And his uncle prepared this safari-like trip. 2 huge canoes were involved, and they were going to canoe out to an island on a river that had been dammed. So the river was wide, and there are several islands, and one in particular, that's where the camping trip was going to take place. So they got on 2 canoes. One canoe was with his uncle himself and all his uncle's friends, plus the man in charge of the canoe, because the man in charge of the canoe was not going on the trip. He was just going to drop them off for 4 days. Yeah, out in the middle of this river, in the middle of nowhere in Brazil. And so they go, and the other canoe was being towed by the first canoe. So with all the camping equipment and all the food and all the fishing gear, and there was no motor to this canoe. The canoe was large, and they had to paddle to this island. This was during Easter holiday. Now, let me give you a sense of what Easter holiday is. Easter holiday is just like Thanksgiving in the United States. Everybody during Easter holiday takes Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off. It's the whole 4 days. It's one of the most traveled holidays in Brazil. We're the largest Catholic country in the world, so you can get a sense of how Easter holiday is celebrated all over Brazil. 4 days off, no questions asked. And so they were gonna go for part of Thursday all the way to Sunday. Well, this man paddled with them to this island. They got there, unloaded all the stuff from the canoe, and right away they were putting, the hooks all set up and throwing and catching and throwing and catching as they saw the canoe owner canoeing away from the island with both canoes. They're going to be there. No cell phones, nothing back in those days. No, this is way back. And so he was there fishing, he was the only kid with all these big, well-weathered fishing guys, he's 14 years old at the time, and he's fishing himself, and they're catching nothing really major, but they're catching a lot of fish, a lot of fish coming. And as the day progressed, they started to feel very hungry. They hadn't eaten anything yet. They hadn't cooked anything yet. They hadn't even set up camp. They had been fishing all day long. And so they went to the food, box. It was this ice box where it was going to be all the food for the 4 days. And when the man unlids the box, there was more fishing gear in there. And he unlit another box, more fishing gear in there. He unlit another one, camping gear, and another one, camping gear again. It was you. You forgot to bring you forgot the food. Well, I thought you were going to bring the food. No, you forgot. You're going to bring the food. All these grown men just arguing with one another. They're like, you're going to bring the food. No, you're going to bring the food. You told me to bring more fishing gear. No, I told you to bring the food. No, you said you're going to bring the food. Well, the point is there's no food to be had. There's nothing there. Nothing. They didn't have matches to start a fire. They didn't have knives. They just had tiny little pocket knives. And they're going to be on this island. Not much of an island, really. For 4 days without food. 4 days without food. The first night, they manned up and went to bed hungry, including my brother-in-law. But the second day, hunger hit hard, especially on Easter holiday, when everybody's eating well around the world pretty much, and you're there just staring at raw fish. Raw fish it was. But it was not anything delicious like something you'd find in a sushi restaurant, meaty with no bones. The fish, had a lot of bones mixed up in the meat, a lot of leather, a lot of scales, and it was kind of hard to get and eat this raw, stinky fish. And that's why my brother-in-law hated fish that smelled fishy. It was because of this trauma he had from his teenagehood of eating raw fish for 3 straight days. 3 straight days. They ran out of water. They were sipping water from the river. The river was not see-through. It was kind of a brown river. And they're just suffering day in and day out. And the heat Oh, the heat, it was terrible. You know how hot it was? It was so hot, they would go like this, and it was just like sweat would start pouring down their faces. It was so hot. It was so hot, they were just like melting away, melting away. They're dehydrated, completely dehydrated, and trying to eat raw fish. Some of them were throwing up, and was throwing up. I mean, this was the trip of a lifetime during Easter. And they found themselves eating sushi. I mean, you can't even say they were eating sushi, really. This is a disrespect to the Japanese cuisine, okay? They probably didn't even know what a sushi was. I mean, just thinking about this is in the 50s, you know? This is back in the 50s, it's 60s, actually. And they were like, you know, from the countryside, there's no Japanese cuisine where they live, you know? You know, the idea of eating something raw, that's not kind of how it goes. You know, that's not how it goes, eating fish raw. And so my brother-in-law, on the 4th day, he was already, you know, blurred vision, you know, dehydration. The men were out just lying about, waiting for that canoe to come. And so he decided to kind of just walk to one end of the island and get distracted fishing a little bit, because every time he fished a little bit, kind of the hunger went away a little bit and the thirst went away a little bit, because it was exciting for him to see what he was gonna get. And there he was fishing, and there was this flat rock in front of him, you know, off of the island. You know, this island had no trees. It was just like little shrubs, and the grass was not even tall on this island. So it was really hot, buggy, and he sees this flat rock, and on this flat rock there is a big rock, like a round rock like this, really big. And he looks at that rock on the rock, and he realizes it's not a rock on the rock, it's a bullfrog on the rock. It's the biggest bullfrog he had ever seen. The thing was like, you know, he's just sitting there. Looking like muscles, like pow, pow, the back, like pow, the neck like bam, you know, his frog is sitting there, ready to take on the world. This thing didn't eat insects, he ate buzzards, okay? All right? This thing was huge. This thing was huge, and my brother-in-law was just staring at it, like this is the biggest frog I've ever seen. And he wanted to run and tell his uncle, but you know, he's afraid he's not going to see the frog ever again. So he's staring at it, when all of a sudden, on this flat rock, coming from behind the frog, is a young anaconda. Now, anacondas can go to 25 feet, and you know, snakes never stop growing. So some of the large anacondas, you know, you can get them like 30 feet, but this was a young one. Just, you know, it was not that long, but it was long compared to other snakes. Yeah? He just remembers it being, you know, really, really, really long and powerful. And the snake sees this frog from behind, and you know what the snake is thinking? Lunch. And the snake goes and whack at the frog, and the frog is trying to escape, and the snake is eating it from behind, and the snake is eating from behind, and the frog is trying to escape, and the frog just has the two front legs trying to escape, but the snake is holding heavy, and the snake's in the frenzy, starts to slither on that hot rock. You know, the snake's body is slithering everywhere, trying to hold on, and the snake was starting to constrict the frog like they do, but then the snake tail goes in front of the frog, and that was the snake's mistake, because as soon as that tail went in front of the frog, whack, the frog got the tail of the snake, and here's the frog eating the snake, and the snake eating the frog, and the frog eating the snake, and the snake eating the frog. It was like better than National Geographic, and there was no National Geographic back then in Brazil, you know. So this was a really exciting thing for a kid to see, and he wouldn't leave because he didn't want to gonna miss the show. And the frog has now completely, it's inside the snake's mouth. So you have the lips of the snake on top of the lips of the rock, and you have 99% of the snake inside of the frog, because this huge brute frog, pow, 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 is swallowing the snake with all its might, and all of a sudden, 99.99% of the snake is inside the frog, and almost the entire frog is inside of the snake, and both animals take a deep breath and eat each other and disappeared right there in front of my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law, you know, he rubbed his eyes, but there's nothing, just the flat rock remained. He went back to his uncle, told his uncle what I just told you, and his uncle felt him. You're not well, but that's quite a good story you just told me. And that's the end of that. Okay.
That was excellent.
Now, you know what the lie is. Since I've done Antonio may need to switch to decaf.
Yes.
So I decided that I would go to an island too. I didn't want to be at the same kind of island Antonio was, because I don't want any raw fish to eat. And if I see an anaconda on this island, I am leaving. Oh, Antonio, you are so amazing. You do such great stories. I just love that story. That's great. And just a little bit about Antonio. I'm just going to put some information about him over in the side. Antonio, do you have anything coming up anytime soon?
I do have something coming out in the Storytelling World Cafe in September, and I'll post that on my website.
Okay.
Right now I'm a little discombobulated, but it's going to be like a noon show in September coming up soon.
Okay. Amen. And you got to go see Antonio wherever he is, no matter what he's saying, or if he's telling the truth or a lie. So we are so glad that we had Antonio. Thank you so very much. And don't forget to put your answers. And before we go for break, which will be after the next storyteller, we'll see if you have figured out which part of his story is actually a lie. But we are in aquatic tales. I want to continue our aquatic mode. And so we're going to see the amazing Ingrid, who always reminds us she comes to us from Alaska. And I'm so glad that Ingrid is going to share with us a story from another body of water. Please welcome the intrepid, which I don't even know what that means, but it sounds so good. The intrepid Ingrid Nixon.
Yay.
Thank you, Sheila, for that great introduction. And thank you, Antonio. That was fun. So yeah, I am coming to you from Southeast Alaska. And as some of you know, I am a ranger with the National Park Service in Glacier Bay National Park here in Southeast Alaska. And Glacier Bay, I know some of you have probably been here, but it's a place, it's famous for its mountains and for its glaciers and for its humpback whales. Because you see, whales migrate from the warm wintering grounds near Hawaii. They migrate up to the park every summer to feed in our nutrient-rich waters. And we have researchers who study these whales. And we actually have a hydrophone that goes out underwater into the middle of the bay, and it records the acoustic environment. And every now and then, that hydrophone picks up the sound of a humpback whale singing. Now, if you have never heard a humpback whale sing before, the males are the ones that sing, and they put together these unearthly tones that sound something like it is amazing. And the first time I was sitting with a researcher and I heard this little snippet of that humpback whale sound, I was just blown away. But the researcher said, oh, this is nothing. You have got to put it on your bucket list to go down to Hawaii in the winter months when the males are really singing and go snorkeling. So there I am. in a snorkel boat in the warm waters of Hawaii. I have got on some fins. I've got on a wetsuit. I've got on a mask and snorkel. I've got a fanny pack on with some emergency gear. I'm a bit of a nerd that way. And in the water all around us, there are humpback whales. And they are singing. And the song is so intense that if you put your hands on the sides of this boat, the metal hull, you can feel them vibrating. So we're getting ready to go in the water. And the one thing about humpback whales is they do not have teeth. What they have are plates of baleen, which is this flexible material. And that's what they use to sieve the water. They sieve the fish out, and the fish is what they eat. So to get in the water with the humpback whales, you know, I wasn't afraid of being, you know, chewed up. It's not like getting in the water with sharks. But humpback whales are enormous. I mean, they're the size of a bus. So my snorkel buddy and I were in that boat. We look at each other and we flip over the side of the boat into the water. And right there, boom, there is this huge male. And he is swimming back and forth, and he is singing. And I am mesmerized. And after I watched him a while, out of the corner of my eye, I turn, I see a female, and she's got a little calf. And I'm like, oh, this little baby whale was born that winter in Hawaii. And so it's like, oh, mother and child. And I am mesmerized. So I'm watching this mother and her baby. And I turn back just in time to see my snorkel buddy go, and all of a sudden, I am just engulfed in blackness. My fins are ripped off, my snorkel's ripped off, my mask is gone, I can't breathe, and I black out. Now, when I came to, it was all black. And it sounded like I was in a room. I could hear the sound of dripping water. And then I remembered that in my fanny pack, I had some matches. So I lit a match. And I held up the match, and I could see that I was on something that was soft and pink, and it was damp. And it was then that I realized that I was in the belly of the whale. And so I stood up, I could feel this motion, and I started lighting match after match, trying to find my way around. And well, lucky, in the belly of this whale, kind of lodged in the corner, I found the ruins of a ship. I don't know how old it was, but it was old. And so I went fishing around, and in a trunk, I found a lamp that had some oil in it. So I lit the lamp, and at last I could see. And so at last Now, if you've never been in the belly of a whale before, or if you've never studied whale anatomy, which is actually really good for this story, the way it works is that when you go in the whale's mouth, you go past those plates of baleen, and then you get to the back of the throat. There's that little punching bag there, you know, the uvula. And then you go past that, and then it just opens up. It's like a big cavern, you know, like a big gymnasium. And when I looked up, I could see the blowhole, and it would open, and I would see blue sky and clouds, and then it would close. And I realized that was how I was going to escape. But how was I ever going to get up there? Well, luckily, in that the ruins of the ship, I found what Antonio did not have, or Antonio's uncle, and that was a crate of food. I don't know how old it was, but it was still good. And so after a while, you know, I started to wonder, well, what's the whale going to swallow another mouthful of water? In which case I might drown, or it might bring in another snorkeler who would be company, but it never happened. What saved me in that whale was the fact that in the ruins of the ship, I found a bookshelf. So I just took the thickest book that was on the shelf, opened it up, and started to read. Call Me Ishmael. Now, I want you to know that I read every single page of Moby Dick, even those long, long passages about whaling. And when I was done and I closed the book, I was like, what? No wonder this whale is so pissed off. At this point, I don't know, one day kind of faded into the next. I really had no idea how long I had been in that whale. And unbeknownst to me, back in Glacier Bay, it turns out that my colleagues had discovered that I'd gone missing. And so they were planning this memorial service. And what they were going to do is they were going to go out into the bay on a boat. And then they were going to say, all sorts of nice things about me. It's not that hard. And then at the end, they were going to take my Ranger flat hat and they were going to toss it out over the waves, and then it would land and would sort of sink beneath the surface. And I mean, the whole thing was going to be very powerful and moving. But meanwhile, back in the whale, I was really feeling the need for some exercise. Well, luckily on that bookshelf, there was this book, and it was called How to Tap Dance in 12 Easy Lessons. I'd always wanted to tap dance, never had the time. Now I had time. So I set in. And it was probably about lesson 5. I was doing this shuffle, step, turn, and I kept practicing that, shuffle, step, turn, shuffle, step, turn, shuffle, step, turn, when all of a sudden the whale gave this spasm. And when the whale gave the spasm, I suddenly shot up into the air almost halfway to the blowhole. Well, that gave me an idea. So I started working through those lessons 6, 7, 8, 9, with every lesson, every step, those spasms of the whale were getting bigger and bigger, and I was getting closer and closer to the blowhole. Well, finally, it was lesson 12. I am like, man, if I don't make it now, I'm never going to make it. So I just am pouring it on, dancing with all of my heart. All of a sudden, there is this tremendous spasm. I go shooting up through the blowhole. I go up into the clear blue sky, and what do I see? The familiar mountains and glaciers of Glacier Bay. The whale has migrated back. Now, this happens at the exact same time that as I'm shooting up into the air, my colleagues have tossed my Ranger flat hat. So as I'm going to shoot in the air, my Ranger flat hat comes towards me. I catch it on my head. I my colleagues. I splash down and I am saved. Well, I've got to tell you that after all the dust settled, I tell one of the researchers about my experience in the whale. And she says, I don't think that's ever been documented before. So I wrote it up. It was published in Scientific American. It was called Tickling Whales Through Tap Dancing. It caused quite a stir, and I have been told that I should brace myself for an early morning phone call from Sweden. I'm thinking to myself, when I go to accept my Nobel Prize, I don't know if I should wear my Ranger uniform or maybe my wetsuit, but this I will guarantee. I will most certainly be wearing tap shoes.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Woo.
Wow.
I'm coming to you from the belly of the whale. And I'm practicing my dance. The electric slide. To the left, to the left, to the right, to the right, to the back, and dip down, up. Yes, all right. Very good, very good. So glad to meet you. Oh, that was absolutely incredible, Ingrid. Oh my gosh. And somebody said our name is actually tickled. They had tapped by dancing. What was it they said? They said something wonderful.
Tickled by
dancing. That's what TBD means. I love it. That is great. Oh my goodness. You are amazing, Miss Ingrid. Right now, we're about to take a small little break. I do want to remind you before the break that we would love, while you're on your break, to go over to PayPal and put in a small donation, which is given to the storytellers so that we can continue to learn together. at tbdstorytellers@gmail.com, or you can email us and we'll tell you where you can do that at. We'll have more stories coming up. We're going to leave our aquatic, oh no, we have a very important aquatic tale song coming up with us soon. And then we will have wonderful stories about the protection of our country. You will want to hear about this. It is amazing what we have in our country. So take a 5-minute break. I will see each of you at 8:45. That is not a lie. 8:45. I would never tell a lie in the belly of a whale. See you soon. All righty, everybody. It is time to come back. Oh,
Come on back.
you. All of you. And I've gone back to being normal. So I decided to leave the belly of the well. It never did catch on to how to do the hustle. I just couldn't live in a well that had no soul. But anyhow, moving on. And I'm not the funny one today, so it's okay. So we're glad to have you back. It's been fun so far. And we are going to have an aquatic song. And in this portion of our program, we're going to think back to that famous quote, "Ask not what you can do for your country, but what your country can do for you." Sorry, that's the wrong quote. You're saying that quote this week. I'm sorry, on television. The real quote is, "Ask not what you can do for not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." That's the quote that we were looking for. Sorry, I got confused about what was going on television right now that we're not watching. And so we're going to just talk about the people that help protect our country. And both Norm and when he comes up, Jeff, who I'll say a little bit more about, they are going to share with us about those people that lay themselves in the line so that we will not be taken over by the Russians or anybody else. So we're going to hear that. But first, on to Norm to tell us an aquatic song. Take it away, Norm.
Well, hello. Well, this song, I originally wrote it to be part of the Northwest Folklife Liars Contest. And it was quite a while back before I became the MC of that, because I decided I would never win. I might as well be the MC. And so I wrote this song, and it was epic. 8 minutes long, and I was sure it was excellent. It was before I learned about editing. I decided that the song should be a song length. After losing, because it was a song, one of the judges said, well, Norm's was good, but it was a song, it wasn't a story. I was crushed. My heart was broken, and I left the song back behind me. But I'm reviving it now, and it's now song length. So thank goodness I won't be taking all my time. I'll just take all the time talking about the song instead. No. So here's the song. It's called Hang On to Life. Now, my wife instructed me that this sometimes when I sing it, it sounds hang on to lie, but don't hang on to lies. Really, don't. Just don't do that. You want to just let them go. Just let them go. That's why we're not watching tonight. So here is the song. It starts with the chorus. You're lucky. You're only going to hear the chorus a few times. People at Folklife had to listen a lot. Some days you're lucky, some days you're not. Hang on to life, it's all you got. The other day, my good friend Mike, he couldn't come on our big hike. And so I went, like a manly male, out on my own, up the dusty trail. I took along my trusty pack, filled with a drink and a tasty snack. I I turned the corner, swigging my water, when without warning stood my sure slaughter. Some days you're lucky, some days you're not. Hang on to life, it's all you got. You see, my friends, I met a bear out in the woods. I'd found his lair. I couldn't move, my feet were froze, and I saw steam shoot from his nose. His long white fangs hung to his chin. I started to shake, he started to grin. He saw me pale, I saw him brown. I sized him up, he sized me down. Some days you're lucky, some days you're not. Hang on to life, it's all you got. Well, he moved towards me upon two paws, and all those paws had 6-inch claws. He seemed to say, let's have some fun. And that's when my feet decided to run. I kicked up dirt, I lost my breath. I thought for sure I was gonna meet my death. But just when he thought he had dinner, well, that's when I saw the raging river. Some days you're lucky, some days you're not. Hang on to life, it's all you got. Well, I took a leap, and I closed my eyes, and that poor bear, well, he lost his prize. I nearly drowned, and I hit my head, but I was breathing, I wasn't dead. So let this moral be written in stone. Use your head, kid, don't hike alone. Don't take the risk, but if you do, just let these words come back to you. Some days you're lucky, some days you're not. Hang on to life, it's all you got.
Woo. Good.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, both of you. So the next story I have is actually based on facts, real facts from like the world and stuff. But well, you'll have to see where it takes off. So, well, I was 10 years old. And I got up early. It was late August, about this time of year when summer's kind of rolling, you know, finishing up. And well, I came out and I got myself a heaping bowl full of Captain Crunch. And I sat down at the kitchen table and I was eating it. I looked out the window and there, right in front of me, out on the power line, was a little red kite dangling off. I thought, wow. That's right. I said, yeah, it's kite season around here. Now, I grew up on the Oregon coast in Coos Bay, Oregon. And on the Oregon coast, it's always plenty windy for kites. But most of the time, it's either like foggy or cloudy or just plain raining. But towards the end of August, there was enough clear blue sky that everybody would get their kite out and they'd go down in my neighborhood. They'd go down to these sand lots that were about 6 blocks from my house, right by this car dealership. And all the kids would be out there. And now I only got to go down there a couple of times. And it was really fun. See, I didn't have a kite because I spent all my summer playing baseball with my buddies. And we would play whether it was raining or sun or whatever. And I spent every extra dime I had on, well, baseball cards. And that summer, I had collected every card in the Topps baseball collection that year, except one, Sparky Anderson. the manager for the, he wasn't even a player, the manager for the Reds. I didn't even like Sparky Anderson, but I longed for that card and I never did get it. But I digress. So I had no money and I never got to go down there. So I looked out that window and I had just finished up my cereal, and I remembered my friends that liked to play baseball. They were all on family vacations or camping. And I thought, hey, yeah, that kite. So I drank up that supercharged milk with the high fructose corn syrup left over from the Captain Crunch, and I was energized. I ran outside and I looked up at that kite, and it was still a little higher than I had thought it was from inside the house. How was I going to get it down? I was looking at it. It was kind of dangling there, and my dad ran out of the house. His hair was still wet from being in the shower, and he had his briefcase with him. He's running to the car. I said, hey, Dad, if I get this kite down, can I have it? And he says, sure. Then he looks up, he goes, huh, you're going to need the long ladder, the one we use for apple picking. It's in the garage. Be careful. So thanks, Dad. And I drove off. And, Dad was always a safety first kind of guy. So, he had reminded me. So, a few minutes later, I'm up on the ladder and I've got a rake because I still can't reach it. I'm trying to kind of grab the kite with it and try not to rip it too much. I'm up there and my sister comes out. And she says, what are you doing? You're on the, she was 5 years older than me. You know how those sisters are, right, Antonio? So she's, what are you, well, you're going to break your neck. That's what you're going to do. You're going to break your neck. Get down from there right now. So next thing, I'm on the ground and she's up on the top rung of the ladder with her rake up over her head, trying to get the kite down herself. And she did it. It was only one small hole. She said, there you go. Now never do that again. You could break your neck. I could always break my neck. It seemed like doing everything. Anyway, I patched that hole in the kite up, and then I went around trying back and forth in front of the house trying to get it up in the air, but it just wouldn't. I mean, there wasn't much string, and it just couldn't get enough. I don't know what it was, but my mom, she came out and she said, Norman, you're never going to get that kite in the sky unless you can have a tail on it. You have to have a tail on a kite or it won't balance. Oh, okay. We went into the kitchen and we looked through some of our junk drawers. We had more than one. And she said, I know I've got string around here somewhere. And well, you know what? I've got some floral wire here. We could make it with floral wire and tin foil. Yeah, that'll be good. Aluminum foil. Yeah, there you go. And you'll have the fanciest kite. It'll be red with a nice tin foil, a little peace sign on it. And it had a little black peace sign right on that red kite too. It looked pretty cool. And I went outside with that little bit of string and I ran around and I got it up in the air. I was so excited. It was only about 20 or 30 feet up in the air, but and it was only up in the air for like 20 or 30 seconds at a time, because every time the wind shifted, it would just nosedive right into the bushes. Every time, wham! And I just couldn't keep it up in the sky. And my brother Stanley came out. It was a week before his 19th birthday, and he said, Norm, what you need is a little more twine or something. And I happen to have some twine, a little roll of it here. Let me just tie this on and we can get this up in the air. Then you'll have enough. He tied it on. I said, well, thanks, Stan. And he said, now go over there and you hold the kite up and I'll tell you when to kind of throw it in the air and I'll pull back. And we did that. I was about 20 feet away, and sure enough, it went right up in the sky. It was flying great. We got it going. I got to do it a little bit. Stan was really helping me out. This was wonderful. It was so fun. Well, then about that time, my brother Vern, he pulled up in his pickup. He'd been at work before I even got up, and he said, hey, how's it going? Well, we're flying this kite. It was on the, I saw it on the wire this morning when I left. And he says, I've got just the thing that we can get this kite up way high. He goes back to his truck and he takes out this huge reel of fishing line. It was really really thick, hard test. And he said there must have been. He says this is a 3,000 meter roll. I was cleaning out old Curly's barn, and his wife told me I could keep anything that was in there. And so I thought this would be fun. So my brothers, they tied the fishing line to the end of the twine, and and they let it go. I was surprised they could do it with it still flying, but they were pretty good, and they got it higher and higher and higher until, oh, it was just a little dot in the sky. And they even let me hold it for a few seconds, but I could barely hold it. It was too hard for me. So they took over again, and it went out and higher until it was just a little tiny black dot in the sky. And then they were out of line. And I thought they were going to pull it all in. But they pounded a stake in the ground, and they tied it to the stake, and they were just going to leave it. I was like, wow, just leave it. Well, it was a free kite, free string, free fishing line. Yeah, we're just going to leave it. Whoa. Well, then my brother Vern, he went in the house, he got a level and a compass, and he figured out the exact angle of that kite. And he said, well, you know, it's hard to tell because of the curve, but it's got to be at least 40 degrees up. So he took a stick and he started drawing something in the dirt. I couldn't understand it really. It was X equals 3,000 times sine 40, something like that. And he looked up a few minutes. He says, Norm, your kite is at least a mile in the air. Wow, a mile. Well, about that time, Mom called us in for dinner, and we just left the kite out there. We went in, and it was a good dinner too. It was pea night. Pork chops, potatoes, and peas. Oh, we loved it. It was so good. I kept smelling the air, hoping that pie was cooking in the oven, but it wasn't. And so we finished our dinner, and I got so excited, I just had to blurt out, my kite is a mile in the air. Can you believe it? That little red kite with a peace sign on it. And my sister said, well, you know, Norm, you'd be in the hospital if it weren't for me. I mean, I was the one that actually got it down. I said, well, yeah, that's right. And Stanley said, well, you would have never really got it flying at all if I hadn't, you know, loaned you the twine and showed you how to do it. Oh, yeah, it's true. And Mom said, well, don't forget, I made you the tail. Yeah, okay. And then Vern said, well, you know, I had Curly's fishing line, and that's what got it so high. And so I said, wow, I guess it's not my kite at all, maybe. And Dad said, oh, well, looks like you got that little kite that I let you get down. Let's just call it the whole family's kite. That was great. That night, the last pea was popcorn. We ate that and watched TV, and I felt so good going to bed. I laid down in my bed, and I went to sleep, and I just thought about that kite up in the sky somewhere, and I was hoping I'd have dreams about it. I fell asleep. I was woke up by bam, bam, bam. Whoa, whoa, wow, somebody was banging on the door pretty hard. And I had my pajamas, my pinstripe pajamas on. I got up, I put my slippers on, and I walked into the living room, and my whole family was gathered at the front door. And there were these men with black hats and black suits, and they were asking federal agents, they said, federal agents, whose kite is outside? And my family, they all turned and looked at me and said, it's his kite. They said, young man, you're coming with us. Next thing you know, I'm in the back of a van with a hood over my head. Although it was kind of nice, it was very padded back there, and really with that hood over, it was very dark. So I went to sleep. It was so nice, kind of in the back of that, rocking back and forth in that van. But when I woke up, I was sitting in a hard chair, and there was a wooden table in front of me, and the room was all dark, and there was a light right in my eye. And one of the men said, how long have you been working for the Russians? Never. Well, how long has your family worked for them? Not that I know of. They haven't at all. How long have you hated America? Well, I like America. I like it very much. Do you tell you what? Where do you get your orders? Who's your contact? Contact? Yeah, contact. You know, the person you take orders from. You mean Mom? Mother Russia? No, well, also my sister. She gives me a lot. Well, no, not Mother Russia. We're Norwegian. Norwegian. Oh, so it's a family thing. No, we're not doing anything at all. What's this all about anyway? All right, let me just tell you here, mister. We know that there is a submarine 200 miles off the coast, and they have been using your kite. Yeah, your kite to figure out our frequencies, and they have been stealing our messages from the naval station. We know this as a fact. What do you got to say about that? Well, I don't know anything about that, but I just know that we didn't buy the kite or anything. Well, we just got it off the telephone wire. So that's where you get your information? Is that where you get it? Well, no, I don't think so. Luckily, somebody interrupted them and took them back in the other room. Oh boy, all those questions. I couldn't take it anymore. Boy, it was worse than math class. So they were gone a long time, and so I just put my head down and went back to sleep. Finally, they came back in, they woke me up, they said, all right, we're gonna see just how American you are. All right, okay, sure, okay, all right. Who's the president of the United States? I know that one. It's Richard Nixon. That's right. But I think my brothers call him Tricky Dick. Is that okay? Yeah, okay, fine. All right. Who is your representative to the United States Congress? Wait, I know this. I shook his hand at the grocery store last year. Wait, he squeezed it really hard too. I know it. It's John Dellenbach on his way to Capitol Hill. I heard that song a lot on the radio last year. So, well, yeah, he's right. Yeah, that's right. Okay. All right. So who are your senators? I'm like, okay. Senators are, well, I've heard them talking about them. I think it's somebody like Bob Packfield and Mark Hatwood or something like that. That's right, isn't it? Is that right? No, it's Bob Packwood and Mark Hatfield, but that's pretty good for a kid. We'll give him that one. So I'm like, well, what's up? Have I passed the test? No. How about this one? Who won the World Series last year? Oh, that's easy. That was my favorite team, the Oakland Athletics. They beat the Cincinnati Reds in 7 games. Really? I thought the Reds won that series. Oh, no. I thought it was the Orioles that won last year. No. The Orioles won in 1970. Oh, really? I thought the Pirates won in 70. No. They won in 71. Don't you remember Roberto Clemente? Come on, one of the best players ever. Oh, yeah, that's right. All right, Mr. Baseball Mind. Who won the World Series in 1969? Really? That's easy. Why? The Miracle Mets of 1969. Well, they shuffled out for a few minutes, and suddenly they came back in. They said, all right, put the hood back on. We're taking you home. All right, put the hood back on. Nice and dark. Good for napping. I went back into the van, and we drove back. We got back to the house. I heard that van door open. I stepped out. They grabbed the hood off my head, and I was right in front of the house. Well, I looked over where the kite was, and, well, the kite was gone. There was the stake, though, still in the ground, surrounded by 3 other stakes with yellow caution tape around it. And then my dad ran out of the house with his briefcase in his hand and wet hair on his way to work. And he goes, hey, glad you're back. Everything go all right? Yeah, Dad, we ended up talking baseball. Really? Huh. All right, well, stay out of trouble, Dad said. And I went inside. My sister came around the corner and said, well, there you are. Yeah, hey. Oh, I smelled it. He says, yeah. She says, Mom's making waffles. And that's when I knew it'd be a really good day. And that's the story.
Woo. Oh, that is awesome. I feel like a kite. Let's go fly. Norm, that is an incredible story. I love that. Thank you for taking care of our country, Norm. We are better off with you in our country. And I haven't seen a submarine at all since that time. Not at all.
There you have it.
Norm is absolutely amazing. He always says great. And I have to tell you, Norm, that song is still running around in my head. I don't appreciate that. I really don't appreciate that. But Norm, are you doing anything upcoming? Have anything going on? And I'm going to put some information about Norm over here in the chat so y'all have it.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Can you hear me?
Yes, I
can
can hear you.
Oh, good. I'm frozen, but you can hear me. Yes, I'm doing some things. Let me see. Let me get it up. I'm in actually on Friday, we're teaching some kids how to tell jokes in New Mexico, virtually, of course. And in a
Are
few
you all
weeks.
still doing that joke thing on YouTube?
No, we're all done. We've done 104 jokes, by golly, and we had some kids tell some jokes too. They maybe outshone us in some ways. But on September 18th, we're going to be at the Seattle Storytellers Guild. We're doing a show for them. It's part of their Friday Story Fest series, and it'll be me and my wife Anne, and it'll be at the same time. And it'll be at the same times that all the TBD shows are done. So, and everybody knows that by now, 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, depending on where you live. And if you're in India, I don't know, but you seem to be able to find us anyway. So, and then on September 26th, we're doing Better Said Than Done which is based out of Fairfax, Virginia. So we're going to be in that show on September 26th with there'll be Ann and myself and Ed Stivender and Bill Lepp and Laura Sims and some other people.
And Cheddar
including
Galloway.
Jessica.
And Cheddar Galloway.
Oh, Cheddar's in our show.
Yes,
Cheddar's in our show too? Oh,
yes.
boy. Oh,
Wow.
I love Cheddar.
That's going to be a great
buddy.
That's good. Well, thank you. And
all right.
Go see Norm Brecke. Goes with Becky. He's just a Brecke, okay? And Norm, thank you so much. You have such great stories. I love listening to Norm. Well, as you can see, we are already being protected by Norm, but now we get the joy to understand that there are people in Jeff's life that have been protecting us for years now, and we're going to hear about what they've been doing for us. Jeff, share with us a story or a lie, whichever one it is.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you. Great to be here. Let's share a story about one of my favorite relatives. Sue, my Aunt Edna was a champion hog caller. Yeah, she was a little woman, but she had a booming voice, and she could hit low notes that would make Antonio's bullfrog jealous, and she had this range. She could hit a high note that would make Glass beg for mercy. Growing up on the farm as she did, hog calling was kind of a normal thing. It wasn't that unusual. She was responsible for feeding the pigs. But my grandfather recognized talent when he saw it. So he took my Aunt Edna and he entered her in the Ascota County Fair hog calling contest. Well, as they approached the podium to enter, all the old men that were the other hog callers and the judges all kind of scoffed at Aunt Edna. And first they said she couldn't compete because she was a kid. And then, but Aunt Edna, she's a determined woman, and she's got out her 4-H manual, and she looked it up and she says, I don't see anything in here that says I can't compete. Well, they finally acquiesced to her request, and they thought, well, maybe we'll embarrass her. We'll let her go last. But when Aunt Edna set out that call for those hogs, well, down in the barn about a block away, those pigs and those hogs in those pens broke out of those pens, crossed the farm or the fair yards, and busted into the exhibition building right up to the stage. Well, those old men were all standing there dumbfounded. They knew they were in the presence of greatness. And she took home the blue ribbon. Well, that made her pretty famous in her little town of Despar, Michigan. Despar, Michigan is, well, it's kind of a small farming community, and she was now their most famous resident. Not much good ever happens in Despar. The football team never wins. The baseball team rarely ever gets a hit. I mean, well, and if you were there, you might not even know you were in Despar, because the sign, the street sign or the sign on the side of the town says you're in despair. Well, because that's the way it's spelled. But the city fathers got together some years ago, and they were embarrassed that they were called despair, so they decided to use the French pronunciation, and they said, we are going to call our town Despar. And it is, you can find it on the map easily enough. It's halfway between hopeless and distraught Michigan. It kind of has the opposite vibe of Climax and Paradise, Michigan, if you get my drift. Well, Aunt Edna, as she grew up, she continued to refine her skills. She started out, she thought, well, she would try calling chickens, and well, pretty soon she got the chickens coming to her, and then she started calling the cows, and she would be calling the cows in from the field, and then the horses were coming in from the field. And then one day she got an idea. She thought, well, I think I might be able to call dogs. And so she set out that call for dogs, and she went, and the sound was so high pitched that no one heard it. But Grandma thought something was odd when the neighbor's dogs came onto the front porch, and then the neighbor's dogs came onto the front porch, and then dogs from a half a mile away, and pretty soon there were dogs from all over the county. And well, Grandma just said, well, I don't have enough dog biscuits for all these dogs. You got to find some elsewhere to put them. Well, there was no more dog calling after that. And well, that was one of the few things she couldn't do. She also could not sing Old MacDonald Had a Farm, because if she sang Old MacDonald Had a Farm, you'd get kind of this stampede on the farm, and they didn't like that. Aunt Edna, she continued to refine her skills, and she became a teenager, and she met this boy named Harold, and she was kind of fond of him, and well, he wasn't paying very much attention to her. He was 2 farms over, and he was very serious about his studies and about farming in general. But that's when she got the idea. She thought, well, she let out the call. Harold! Just like that, Harold come a running from 3 or 4 farms away. What can I do for you, Edna? Edna liked that. She was sweet on him, and well, they started dating, and my grandparents weren't too sure about Harold. You see, he was kind of peculiar, and well, he was a hard worker, and he studied hard, but I just be honest, he was the family member that believed in aliens. I mean, he thought that whole Area 51 was a real thing, that there were aliens living amongst us. But Aunt Edna convinced him that it was okay. She says, everybody has peculiarities. It's, I call hogs. He believes in aliens. What's the difference? We're a perfect match. So they got married, and then they had kids, and I always felt sorry for my cousins, because, you didn't want to be my cousin, because their mother could find them anywhere. She would set out the call, Jimmy John Jenny, and it was like an ear-piercing sound as she let go the Jenny. And, well, my cousins often feigned that they did not hear the call, but that didn't stop them from coming home, because you see, the whole community could hear that call, and people would stop what they were doing, and they would start looking for my cousins, and they would drag them home, because if they did not come home within 25 minutes, Aunt Edna would let out the call again, and nobody wanted to hear that. Well, when the kids got older, Aunt Edna, she got kind of bored, so she decided to take up fishing. And well, it's a good thing that Uncle Harold's not the jealous type, because everybody wanted to go fishing with Aunt Edna. The men would just show up and ask Edna if she would go fishing with them, you know. And at first she would go out in the boat, and then she would stick her head under the water. And I mean, she could vary tone, and she could get species. She practiced, and these fish would just be jumping in the boat. Well, she finally entered a bass fishing to the state bass fishing tournament, and well, they disqualified her that first year because she says the only person that showed up without a boat. She just stuck her head in the water, called from the shore, and picked out the 4 or 5 bass she wanted to enter, and there they were. Well, you could imagine that her reputation grew, and then, you know, the National Park Service, those park rangers started to call her, and well, they wanted help, you know, finding endangered species. That way they could catalog them and keep track of them. So she went out and helped, you know, them out. And then she got one of her most famous calls. It seemed the Coast Guard called the house, and they needed help up in the Sioux Locks in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Well, a mob of killer whales was blocking up the Sioux Locks, and the Sioux Locks is where the freighter ships go from Lake Superior into the St. Mary's River and then down into Lake Huron and Lake Michigan. And a mob of whales had gotten up there and blocked it, and they had blown the foghorns. They'd tried to push them out of the way, but nothing was working. And Aunt Edna was kind of a last resort, and she got up there, and they got some big speakers, and they put them down near the water, and then she said, ooh, she got on the microphone, and she went, ooh. And the Canadians on one side and the UPers on the other side says, yeah, there she blows, eh? And those whales just started jumping out of the water, and they were responding. Well, Aunt Edna, you know, she was a farm girl, so she you know, got them to go into the lock, and well, the whales were a little bit confused. So my Aunt Edna, you know, she'd been on horses and ridden cows actually, so she got a dock line off the side of the locks, and she lassoed that killer whale just like they do at SeaWorld, and she climbed on, and she took that killer whale down into the St. Mary's, rode them right down and got them into St. Mary's River, Lake Huron, and into Lake Michigan. And that, you know, she actually helped establish the Great Lakes Whale Migration Station. And, you know, if you want, you can look it right up on, you can look it up online. I think Ann's posting the link right there. Well, you can imagine when she did that. I mean, she got worldwide press. She was on Johnny Carson and Phil Donahue, and she had a book tour, and Uncle Harold was getting a little bit annoyed. He finally got her to come home, and he said, you know, she was home about a month, and then she just went missing. She was gone. The rest of the family wanted to know what happened to Aunt Edna, and Harold wouldn't say anything, and the sheriff tried to investigate, and he couldn't tell you where they were at. It was a big mystery. But last year, Uncle Harold, he's in his 90s. I decided I was doing a little genealogy research. I thought, well, I will go up and I'll talk to him. So I went up and visited Uncle Harold and said, Uncle Harold, what happened to Aunt Edna? And he sat there on the front porch. He says, well, you know, I was sworn to secrecy. There was a lot of rumors going around after that whale thing. And, well, they say a lot of people say she ran off with one of them fishermen that she used to go fishing with. And then, well, some said she ran off with one of them national park rangers. You know how they are. You know how those people are. But that's not what happened at all. That's not what happened at all. You see, about a month after that, the whale incident, one day we were sitting out here on the front porch and these two black Suburbans pulled in the driveway. These two fellers in black suits got out and they wanted to talk to her. Seems that they needed some help calling the aliens. Calling the aliens. Can you believe it? I've been right all along. Well, Aunt Edna was one never to forego a challenge, so she got in the car and off she went with them. Well, she was back about 3 weeks later. And we were sitting here on the porch, and she, I have to tell you, she was in despair. And it's not good to be in despair and distraught. Not good to be in despair. Not when you're halfway in despair. Not when you're halfway between hopeless and distraught. She told me that she called those aliens for 3 weeks, but nothing would respond. Nobody responded, she said. And she went through all the calls that she'd use. And on and on. And as she's sitting there with tears coming down her eyes and me telling her everything's okay, we hear this big noise out back. I thought that was strange. And then this light comes over the house and this spaceship lands right on the front lawn. Right there. You see where that burn mark is and the grass hasn't grown for 20 years? It landed right there. Well, these aliens got out, said that they had lost some relatives deep in the galaxy and they needed help finding those relatives. And they wondered if your Aunt Edna would help them locate the relatives. Well, never wanted to back down from a challenge. She said, oh, of course I will help you. What did it look like? I asked him. He said, that's the strangest part. It looked just like the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. He said, yeah, they've been among us from the 1960s. That's right. Whew. And they were off. But she calls home. She said on a regular basis, she always calls me once a month on the first Saturday of the month, like clockwork. Well, I had to go and I stopped in town, the Spar, at the Burnt Grounds Coffee House, because that's the only thing you can get in the Spar. And I got my coffee and I was looking over at the courthouse and there was a bronze statue of Aunt Edna, world champion hog collar, it said. And just then the courthouse clock struck 1. And then I heard it. Hey! And it came around again. It was Aunt Edna. The first Saturday of every month at 1 o'clock. She was calling Uncle Harold. And she calls him all over the country because she is looking out for Uncle Harold and she is watching over us. Thank you.
Nice.
Well, yes, here she is. Aunt Edna. Oops, sorry. Here's Aunt Edna right here. It's so good to see you. And this guy is telling us it is not look like a wiener dog car. Thank you, Jeff, so much for that story. That was out of this world, and I'm not lying. I could hear that story from everywhere I was. Jeff, you are amazing. And while I put just a few things in here about how to get in touch with you. Can you tell us if you're going to be doing anything anytime soon?
Well, I've got a show coming up on September 12th, and I think Ann's posting it or hopefully we'll post it in the chat. It's with the Ann Arbor Storytellers group. It's Living Room Live. It's a little over an hour show of just me. And then also we'll be live at the Howell, or I don't know that we'll be live. We'll be doing a Zoom concert for the Scary Story Festival for the Howell Opera House in Howell, Michigan, where I'm from. So we'll be doing that on October 24th. So
awesome. Well, we have had such an incredible night. I want to put everybody up, have the whole gallery up there. No more cancel spotlight, no more, you can cancel my spotlight. I want to thank you so much for Antonio, Rocha, and Ingrid Nixon, for Norm Brecke, and I'm just making sure I say it, emphasize it so I say it right in my head, and Jeff Doyle for this incredible night of what I thought were true stories. I don't know what you all thought. I certainly understood that an anaconda, it can be eaten by a bullfrog. I don't know what y'all got out of that, but I got that. I understood that. And of course you're going to tap dance in a whale that has read Moby Dick. There's no doubt that that happens. And I'm here to tell you that I believe that all kites put up in the air will communicate with Russian submarines. And I for sure am one of those people that has heard Harold once a month around the world. I just heard all absolutely wonderful. And so another round of applause, and you all can unmute for a second and tell them how wonderful you are. Although I have to tell you one last thing, if you'd like to help and encourage our storytellers, you can give by PayPal to TBD 2-bit darnation. And so you can give the TBD Storytellers at gmail.com through PayPal, or email us and we will send you some other alternatives for that. Our next show, which is going to be Pants on Fire, Leg 2. Y'all only thought we would burn up one leg. Come on now. And that one's going to have Simon Brooks and Paul Strickland and Ann Rutherford. I won't be in that one. Well, I might be.
Yeah, you
Well,
will.
you might be.
You're all gonna be.
I can't lie to you. I might show up, but I don't know yet. So we'll see. And but that's going to be in September on Tuesday.
The last Tuesday.
The last Tuesday in the month, which has a number that I don't know.
29.
The 29th, thank you. If you got all that, that was Tuesday, September 29th at 7 p.m. Central Time. Whew, got all that out. That was great. It was a wonderful night. Wasn't it a great night, everybody? That was just awesome.
Yes.
And now it's time for us to take course number 1 in tap dancing. All right, Ingrid, get started. Thank you all so much for coming. We are so excited to be able to do this.